Okay. Good morning, y'all. I do apologize for last class period that I was kind of proctoring that I didn't have a chance to actually be in the classroom as long as I wanted to be to really kind of parse through the information and explain a little bit more. But along in this lesson, some of the teacher resources that we have, there is a video that has binary to data. It kind of goes into a deeper explanation of that kind of concept of how computers actually communicate, where they use the ones and zeros, and how that actually works. Using the bit, basically a bit of information being the on or off, true or false, the one or zero, right, and just kind of how that goes along to provide information back and forth to computers so they can actually generate stuff and use that information to do things, right? So in lesson 7 and 8, primarily we're talking about imagery or effectively how computers can generate an image, right? And the first thing that they wanted to really start breaking down was talking about how um, an image itself is broken into basically smaller and smaller and smaller chunks to give it more definition, right? This right here that I have pulled up is the code.org GUI. You might have heard the term GUI before, but let me just reiterate. It's an acronym that stands for Graphical User Interface, GUI. And a lot of the stuff that you actually see online is usually some sort of graphical user interface that makes it a little bit easier so you don't have to type out all those ones and zeros or code or anything to make stuff happen. So, like this part of the GUI itself, we can actually uh, use these sliders here to adjust the amount of pixels that we can turn on or off in this display area right here, right? So let's just do it like a perfect square of 30 by 30. Okay, and then for initial sake, just to make it a little bit easier to, or actually let me go 10 by 10 because but I don't have to do quite as many pixels. But uh, for for just for the initial intents and purposes, each pixel itself, we're basically just going to use binary to where we're just turning it on or off, right? So we're either putting a one or a zero for each pixel, and it's actually going to create an image because we're turning it on or off. And when we're talking about light, uh, off is actually black because it has no visible light, and then when we add complete light, it actually turns white. In this 10 by 10 grid here, I'm going to actually uh, create the letter A. So for the top line, I'm going to just make sure that everything is all whited out. So each bit that I'm putting here will actually color in uh, the the uh, the pixel itself. And right now we have 100 pixels because it's basically a 10 by 10 grid. So I am going to make a letter A. And maybe you want your A to look different. I'm just going to do a very, very basic letter A that is sans serif with no serifs. So So on a 10 by 10 grid, I've made a letter A, and you can see just by using these ones and zeros, the where I put no color at all, it basically blackens it in, or sorry, no light at all, it blackens it in, so we can actually see the letter A. So if if we wanted to actually give this A more definition, we could actually kick up the grid in such a way that we make a more defined grid, so we can really stylize our A and make a much nicer A. So, but we also have to do a lot more bits. So let's put it up to 20 by 20, and now I will make a different A. But as you can see, the more amount of pixels that we have, we can basically give our image more definition. But you can see how this is a little bit of a tedious process, but it's also because we are literally putting everything in bit by bit, right? Which is why using a graphical interface, a graphical user interface, makes it a lot easier to do this kind of stuff, because if I could actually just draw it in with a mouse, it would be much easier. But unfortunately, it's not set up that way. But at least if I do my spacing right, it makes it a little bit easier, so I can see where I want to fix stuff and do adjustments. Actually, that little hat thing looks weird, so I would even say let's get rid of that. So now we've done an A, but this on a 20 by 20 grid, we can actually give it a little bit more detail. So we actually have some serifs that we put on the base there and everything. But that's just understanding that. So like all the images that you actually see on a computer screen, like actually this graphical user interface that you're seeing right here has a lot of pixels on it, because you're actually seeing all these little images of the text, everything broken down, but it actually is pixelated out to actually be able to give you this image that you actually see here on the screen. Uh, so now, um, I'm not sure if Miss Stevens wants to give you an assignment just doing pixels with a black and white image, or uh, what I'll do next is actually start jumping into like adding more bits of information into every single pixel, right? Because right now we just have an on or off, which basically gives us a black or white light. But what we can actually do is create color by adding more bits of information into each pixel itself. So what we will do is we will actually look here. And first of all, let's talk about a little bit about what actually exists. So nominally, when we talk about color, a lot of times you remember back in elementary, you talk about primary colors being red, uh, yellow, and blue, but that's pigment color, and conceptually it's actually a very different thing, because those pigment colors are not what we actually uh, would actually see as far as pigment colors are actually supposed to be, because they're basically secondary colors of light, because the primary colors of light actually are red, green, blue. So when you hear that term RGB, that's what it actually stands for: red, green, and blue. So every color of the rainbow, of visible light and everything, can actually be generated with these three color channels. Red being the first, green being the second, and blue being the third. But every time we actually go through the concept of this primary light color of red, green, blue, it's because we actually have a light source coming through it. So like what you're looking at here, your monitor actually has light that's coming out, and that's why we're actually able to represent red, green, blue using it, because it actually has a light source. But you will hear the term also of CMYK when you talk about like printers and stuff like that, and it's because like when you print something on a piece of printer paper, you're not actually seeing any light generated, because we don't magically put light, imbue light into the ink when we're actually printing an image on a printer, and that's why it actually has to be colored in cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. The black darkens it, but the CMY portion of it, that's cyan, magenta, and yellow, and those are actually your secondary colors for additive color, but they are primary colors for subtractive color, or which is what we normally see as pigment color. So normally the cyan, magenta, and yellow is actually what originally we started thinking of as red, yellow, and blue when we first started making little pigment colors when we were in elementary and everything. So um, let's go back to our GUI that we actually have here in code.org, and I wanted to show you a little bit of color mixing. So right now, the setup that I have basically 6 spots, 6 pixels that we're going to mess with, and we'll just do image height 1 because I just want the 6 pixels, and we're basically going to fill up each pixel with a color, and right now the bits per pixel is is effectively 9, which each color channel has 3 bits per it. Like if we wanted to actually term this, this would actually be 9-bit color, because we have 3 bits per each color channel. So like 3 bits representing red, 3 bits representing green, and 3 bits representing blue, or basically 8 levels of color saturation in each of the different color channels, right? So, and I will demonstrate this by filling in the first pixel, right? So if we put 111, 000, and 000, that actually colors that in with our best red that we actually have. So it doesn't. It's basically putting as much red as possible in that first pixel right there. So if we want to color in the next pixel with green, we won't add any red at all. So we have to put 3 zeros there because that's our red color channel, and then we'll put 3 ones for the green channel, and then 3 zeros for the blue channel. So then we have a green pixel, and then to make a blue pixel, any guesses? If you said 6 zeros and 3 ones at the end, you were correct. So now with these last 3 pixels, I wanted to show you a little bit of the color mixing, or the concept of actually what happens when we mix 2 of our primary colors for this additive color in RGB. So if we take red and green and we mix it together, it actually makes yellow. So I'm going to put red, I'm going to put green, but no blue at all. And now we actually have a yellow pixel. Next, if we take green and blue and mix them together, that actually gives us cyan. So we'll put 3 zeros for the red channel, we'll put green, and we'll put blue, and now we have the cyan pixel. And then next, we're going to make a magenta one. So if we take red and blue and mix them together, but we put no green at all, we'll actually have magenta. So remember when we were doing the black and white images, if you mix all 3 colors together as much as possible, that ends up giving you white light. So here, let me add 1 more pixel, and then I will show you that real quick. And now we have the white light. So just in this image, like, we don't have a lot of levels of color in this right now, but this shows that we have 7 pixels, and we're actually putting color in each one with these amount of bits of information. And you can already see that we're already putting a lot of ones and zeros, and all we've done is basically just made 7 color pixels out of all of that information that we're actually putting up there. So just understand that as you want to add a little bit more color and everything, or different levels of color, and the ability to actually have more variation and everything, you have to add more bits of information. So if you ever hear the concept of like you know, a lot of our newer gaming and everything, we talk about 24-bit color. 24-bit color actually has 8 bits for each of the color channels. So you have 8 bits on red, 8 bits on green, and 8 bits on blue, and that allows you to basically have a complete range of 0 to 255 on each of those color channels, which gives you over 14 million levels of color, basically, of color mixing here. Let me do the calculation for you real quick, and we'll so I can demonstrate. So if you have 256 times 256 times 256. So if we have 8 bits for each color channel, we have a possibility of 16,777,216 different colors that we can have in each pixel. So with that, and I've demonstrated this in other ways using what we'll end up using like in the future, the CMU Academy interface, the GUI interface that we have there. But with that many amount of color variation, I mean, you can't even see the difference. The naked eye can't even see the difference, and that's just with 24-bit color. Now you've heard the term 32-bit color, which actually adds not another channel of color. It actually just adds more variation into where we add transparency into the actual pixels, right? So you're not changing the color mixing at all. You're just changing the way that each pixel relates to the pixels that are adjacent to it. If you have something that is transparent and you're seeing another color through the back of it and everything, there's just a relational thing of all those pixels sitting next to each other, and so the naked eye is actually seeing it differently because of just the relationship of something being transparent to where something basically effectively shifts to how close it is to another blob or color of image and stuff like that. So that extra 8 bits of information is called the alpha channel. So whenever you hear 32-bit color, it's basically just RGB with an alpha channel. So we haven't gone past anything past 32-bit color, like the what you see now with a lot of the newer graphics of the 4K and the 8K. Effectively, all we're doing is just adding more and more pixelation or more resolution that allows you to see so much pixelated depth into an image that it makes it so refined that it looks cleaner and more crisp than the naked eye can even fathom. So like if you're walking into a Best Buy or something like that and you're looking at a TV that's the 4K or the 8K, the imagery just looks so ridiculously crisp that it's like staring at a building underneath a microscope. It's ridiculous. It adds so much visual information that it's overwhelming, and that's something that you need to understand, because that visual information that you're seeing is so many ones and zeros coming at you that and your eyes are having to process all that information. That's why your eyes do get tired with staring at screens all day that have a lot of resolution in them, because you're basically collecting a lot of visual data. So with that being said, I mean, these GUIs are pretty cool that you can actually play around with them and do some adjustment and everything. So so if you want, you can actually use these to draw a picture. To where, as long as you're going by increments of 3, we can actually maintain the RGB. So if we put this down to 3, it makes it a little bit easier, and then we can just use the base colors of red, green, blue, and cyan, magenta, and yellow, and black and white. So we basically have 8 different colors that we can actually create with three bits per pixel, right? So I'm going to draw a happy face real quick for you right now. So let's do that. So actually, let me do it like this. So we don't take too much time here. And to make yellow, it is red and green. And of course, if we kick up the pixelation, we can make this image a lot more bold or a lot more detailed. But for time consideration, I'm going to just do it with this right now. So. And of course, if we had more pixels, we could definitely make it a little bit more detailed. In fact, if we want to make this a little more circular, what I can do It looks a little wonky. I guess it looks more like a happy star than a happy face, but you get the point. And this is definitely something that you can play around with. Like I said, you can add up the more pixelation that you have. You can definitely draw like a really cool picture with this going through it. You can even add more bits per pixel. So like we can actually do the 24 bits that actually show the full color range in each pixel, right? So you can have and that shows you a reddest red, but you could actually go through every single level of red to show a difference. But if you want to step through this like by tens and just show the different levels of red, like we can. That's not a noticeable change. We can do it. The less red you put into it, of course, the darker it's going to get. But you can see there is a difference there because we're not putting as much red into it. And conceptually, this is the same thing. So if we wanted to do a yellow square, we would add red and green. That would actually give us yellow. But we could have the next square be less yellow and more green by not putting as much red. You see, and that's much more green. Or we could do a pure green one by adding no red at all. And another way to look at this, because a lot of times you'll actually see like, especially when we're programming in Python, you'll use the terms RGB here. Word pad real quick. Memo pad. So a lot of times in Python, you'll see this. We'll code it, and instead of having some of the preset colors that they have, we'll type in RGB equals actually, sorry, we'll give it some variables, so like color 1 equals RGB, and then we do a parentheses and we put like given values like 100 comma 255 comma 0, And in order to do that on this, that first channel is doing 100, so we would have to put no 128, 164, 132, no 16, so 64, 100 minus 64 minus 32. So we need to fill in the 4. So no 8, 4. There we go. That would be 100. And then we wanted the 255 is all of them. And then 0 for blue. And that color right there that just appeared, that is the equivalent of what we actually just coded for color 1 in with this statement in Python. That's effectively what we're doing the same thing with this GUI right here. So if we were to do color 2 RGB, let's say 10, so a little bit of red, not much, about mid-range, we'll do a 128 mid-range of green, and then a decent amount of blue. So here that was 10, 128, 200. So 10, we have to put 1, 8, a 1, 2, and then that gives us 10 for the red channel. 128, this first spot is 128, so that's 128 for our green channel. And then 200, we would start with 128. We definitely do 64. Let me pull up the calculator again just to make this a little bit easier on us. And you can see how I'm stepping through this too. So if we want 200, we put 128. We put a 64, and then we have an 8 that we need to put. So no 32, no 16, but we have 1 8. We have rest of zeros, and that gives us that kind of bluish, blue-green, tealish color. So it's actually like a turquoise, I guess. Not really a teal, but that's like a turquoise. But yeah. So you can fool around with this, mess around with this, also adjust your bits per pixel. But if you actually want to put them in a red, green, blue state, make sure it's multiples of 3, so you can actually break up the bits per pixel in such a way that it allows you to basically use a red, green, and blue channel. But yeah. That gives you an opportunity to kind of mess around with that and have some fun with it. And I'm not sure what specific assignment Ms. Stevens is going to want you to do, but either or, there's a worksheet on pixelation, but you can also use the GUIs here in color images or black and white images to mess around with that. To maybe she wants you to draw a picture with a given height and width, and then see what you can come up with using color or black and white. But hopefully this was kind of fun and entertaining to see how how a graphical user interface is a little bit more easier to use in comparison to code, and just how they relate to each other, and kind of a bigger definition of what's actually happening when we're doing all this stuff on the computers itself. But again, if you have any questions on anything, please don't hesitate to use your remind.com, or just talk to Miss Stevens, and she can message me through our back channel on Slack, and I will definitely give you uh, as much information as I can from what I have learned messing around with computers and computer languages. But have a great day. I hope to see you in class soon.